Samia Suluhu thought she could hide behind AU protection. But right now, even her allies have grown tired of the mask. Africa has eyes now. The people of Africa have eyes now. Even the bodies that like AU, East African Community, they can no longer take it anymore. The truth is walking free right now.
I have to say that I was an observer an African Union observer for the elections. And much as we celebrate women in leadership, as an observer and given our report, we did say that the elections were far from free, fair, and credible. And with the shutdown of the internet in Tanzania and all the videos that we're seeing, it is the same women and children that we're championing today that are being affected. So what I would like to say is I pray for Tanzania and every conflict-ridden country at the moment. We heard from Kativa Belani about fleeing conflicts. We want peace in Africa, and we want good leadership and governance and democracy, and the space in that in democracy to be.
Greetings, all of you. Kindly subscribe to this YouTube channel, Neo Africa. Let's talk about Africa and what's going on in Africa. Now, the African Union, an institution that has long been accused being too quiet. And it's true. They have been quiet for everything. They have been quiet for what is happening in Congo. They have been quiet for what is happening in Sudan. They have been quiet for what was happening in Tanzania until the people rised, until the youth shouts. Okay? They have been too quiet. They have been too neutral. They have been too protective to those in power. Okay? And right now, AU is suddenly signals that even Samia Suluhu leadership is not immune to exposure. Okay, they came out and said even the election that was held in the Tanzania was not free and fair. Okay, now the story unfolding around Tanzania's leadership is not just political; it is symbolic. It represents the awakening of African accountability, because for too long our leaders have made deals in silence, IMF loans signed in the dark, agreements written with Western hands, and promises sold to foreign interest. And this agreement does not benefit the normal citizens or common mwananchi. It doesn't. It only benefits them. But the African people right now, the African youths have changed.
The AU, the African Union, they keep proving time and time again that they know nothing about what is going on in Africa. Do you remember that they congratulated Samia Suluhu? Yes, they did. They sent her a message that read, "We take note of the result and we congratulate you on your victory." But here's the thing. They did this when the people were in the streets protesting. The people were in the streets getting killed by her government, and they are here congratulating her. This is crazy. Well, the people did not like that, and they made sure to let them know. Well, they backpedaled. After the backlash, they backpedaled and they said that they reject her election. They reject her government. That is crazy. They said that they have proof of ballot stuffing, internet blackouts, and even abductions. Well, if you had all of this, then why did you congratulate her? This is just crazy. They seriously went from congratulations to "you are not the legitimate leader. You should step down." This is crazy. It just shows that they know nothing about what they are doing. They should have known this before even us. We knew about this because we don't live in Tanzania, yet somehow we know more than they do. Well, we may not agree on how the African Union runs its business, but we can agree on one thing. At least they rejected Samia Suluhu and her government. Even though it took a while, they rejected. But what can they do next? What will they do next? What do you think? Will they do something about Samia Suluhu?
The AU, once a shield for the powerful, is now being forced to come out. And it's forced by who? It is forced by the voice of the people to confront the truth. You know, a lot of African leaders have been shielding on the back of AU. They have been staying behind the back of AU. Let's be honest here. When Samia Suluhu took power, many Africans celebrated. Okay? They saw it as the first female president in Tanzania. I was one of them. I was one of those who celebrated, thinking that at least something is changing in the history. Leaders are taking power, or women are taking leadership seats. Okay? So a lot of Tanzania hoped. They went ahead. Musicians are creating music. Mama, Samia, mama, mama. You know, and let me tell you, what is happening right now is not about gender. No, it's not about a man or a lady. What is happening right now in Tanzania, we need to hold accountability without looking if you are dealing with a man or we are dealing with a woman. Because if a lady can orchestrate all these atrocities that is happening in Tanzania, the unaliving of people, the bullets in the air, right now we are talking around more than 1,000 people, 1,000 dead bodies on the street. So we have a change, okay? We have a change that is happening. But slowly, behind the smiles of that soft diplomacy of Mama Samia, the tone began to shift. The way we were seeing him, or the way we were seeing her as someone who is going to bring some changes and development in Tanzania and everything, the tone changed. And I told you about who is behind that power, who is behind that shift. Okay? Street of Tanzania that once echoed with free speech became quiet under the weight of fear and election. Okay? Now, African Union right now, the same body that once defended the image of Samia Suluhu, is facing internal revolt. Because African representative and human rights groups have begun to speak up about Tanzanians. Have begun to speak about Tanzanian democratic backsliding. They have begun to speak about violent suppression of protest and about Western influence steering Tanzanian decision. And this is like betrayal to Samia Suluhu, because when she was sweared in, she went ahead and said, even the body of AU who are overlooking election have come here and they have testified that the election is okay. But right now, the tune has changed. Okay? It is no longer a local issue right now. The continent is watching. Africans' youth, it is new generation that refuses silence and calling it what it is. Call a spade a spade. A betrayal of African liberation is what is happening in Tanzania. Because let's make it plain, okay? Leadership without accountability is colonialism reborn. It is no different from the colonial governor who wore an African face but answered to a European master. And that's the accusation hanging over Samia Suluhu government today. Not just corruption, not just poor governance, but alignment with the same Western system that keep Africa begging while pretending to liberate her. After Magufuli's death, the first step of Mama Samia Suluhu was to bring back IMF, was to take loans. The thing that Pombe Magufuli had said no to it. Now, inside the African Union, the last private sessions, reports have emerged of growing frustration, not just about Tanzania, but about how too many African leaders are trading sovereignty for survival. And the one name that kept coming up to those whispers, William Ruto, Samia Suluhu, and a lot of them. Okay? When even the AU, an organization known for silence, begins to leak frustration, that's no things as boiled. You know the foundation is cracking. Okay? Behind the scenes, AU diplomats have reportedly expressed concern about Tanzania handling the opposition figures, the separation of journalists, freedom of speech, the government reliance on IMF and World Bank prescriptions that harm ordinary citizens. And to the average Tanzanians, these are not new story. When AU begins to acknowledge them, even quietly, it's a sign that Africa conscience is waking up. Because I was expecting AU to remain silent. And at first, they congratulated Samia Suluhu. But when the pressure increases, yes, the body degreases. My brothers and sisters, this story is not just about one president. It's about a pattern that has held Africa hostage for decades. The same script have been played in different countries, different faces, different systems. You know, leaders start strong, promising reform, and then what they do, they fall into the same trap of dependency and repressions. It is the same reason the West keeps smiling at leaders who oppress their own people, because as long as they obey foreign economic infrastructure or instructions, the international community calls them heroes, calls them stable. But when a leader chooses the people, like Thomas Sankara did, like Patrice Lumumba did, like Muammar Gaddafi did, suddenly the world calls them dictators. we must ask questions. We must ask, who defines good leaders in Africa? Is it us Africans or them? Who are defining good leaders for us in Africa? It's supposed to be the voice of African people, not the voice from Washington or the voice from London or the voice from Paris. They came with something democracy, and it's just an illusion. I call it the illusion of democracy. Samia's government held election that many in Tanzania called unfair, manipulated, and even silenced by fear. Opposition parties reported harassment. They were jailed. Tundu Lissu is still in prison. And some of the rallies were shut down. I went in Tanzania 2 days before election in Namanga border, and I went through up to around Arusha. All I was seeing was billboards of Mama Samia. No, any opposition was allowed, I think, to put their picture there. All billboards. There's no business billboards. Business what? It's just about Mama Samia Suluhu. And when protesters took to the street demanding fairness, justice, and a better economic, what did the government do? The government response was force, arrest, intimidation, and at times, rifles were drawn out. A lot of bodies have lied down in the streets of Tanzania. If you haven't watched some clips, go and watch on the page of Mange Kimambi. And now the AU, which has often avoided interfering in member affairs, it is finding itself cornered by global pressure and public outrage. It cannot keep pretending that all is well in Tanzania. Okay? Some call it betrayal, that the AU is standing against one of their own, but maybe, just maybe, it is not betrayal at all. Maybe it is the awakening. For me, I think it's awakening. The youth's voice, the people's voice, the African people's voice is going wider. And because for too long, the AU has acted like a club of presidents protecting each other from the people. But this time, the people's voice is too loud. Social media has made the whispers global. The youth movement across Africa is top-notch, from Senegal to Kenya. It is happening. So when the AU distances itself from Samia leadership, it might not be because of morality, but it is because of the pressure of the people that has become unstoppable. And we must talk about our Western ties. Let me talk about Samia Suluhu with Western ties, because what? Because this is where the betrayal of African liberation becomes most visible. While African nations cry out for economic independence, Samia administration has leaned heavily on IMF. The first loan he took was more than 500 million US dollars from IMF. They call it for development projects. But it always comes with hidden condition. Okay? Every time Africa borrows under pressure, it trades another piece of its future. And when you look closer, you realize that it is not the IMF or World Bank. Western companies are quietly entering Tanzania. They're entering Tanzania resources sector. They are entering into gas, gold, agriculture under the label of partnership. But ask yourself this question: partnership for who? The youth see through it. Tanzanian activists, young intellectuals, and even some ruling party inside have begun speaking out. They are saying that we are not promised progress, but we got was control. What we got, they promised at progress, but we are getting control. The streets are speaking in silence. Not because people are weak, but because the ruling party, CCM, is a machine answering with rifles, with guns on the air. Allow me to say this. AU has been silent for too long. Congo has been going through shits. AU has been silent. And right now, AU distancing from Samia is not just a political move. It is a historical shift, because we need to see these bodies calling out leaders who are not for the people. This, what AU did, it signals that Africa is entering a new phase where even continental institutions must answer to the people. And we don't want just to see announcing that it wasn't fair. We want to see action. I personally want to see action on Samia Suluhu and the government. I personally. Samia mask of international diplomacy is peeling. That woman. The woman once praised. I was one of the people who lift my hands and say that we are seeing a history unfolding in Tanzania. Right now, my hands are down. My hands are down. I wash my hands on this. So this is not the end. It is just the exposure. Because when Africa wakes up, no leader, no matter how protected, can hide from the light of truth. I hope the youth of Africa are not backing down. I hope the youth of Tanzania are not backing down. Free every freedom fighter. Free every fighter who fought for justice and fairness. Let's meet at the next episode. Peace out.